Welcome to Tranquility Magazine Podcast with your host, Jasmine Maya Royce.
Thank you very much. I am excited to have my guest today, the Reverend Dr. Lauren Artress. And she is an amazing author of Walking the Sacred Path, Rediscovering the Labyrinth as a Sacred Practice, and The Sacred Path Companion, a guide to working with the labyrinth and healing the transformation. I'm really excited to have Laura today because she is a priest for the Episcopal Church, and her parish is in the Grace Cathedral, San Francisco, California. And you've had quite a journey in your life. I like when it talks about in 91, you kind of went on your own sabbatical. What did you learn from that time?
Well, that was a really important time because 1991, the AIDS epidemic going in the crisis into epidemic started happening around 87. And we were surrounded by death. There were many people worried, those who had a positive diagnosis, those who were afraid to get a test, all of that was happening. And by 91, I was pretty burned out.
Yeah.
I was the Canon Pastor, so my job was to be the major pastor in the community, and it's a large community at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. And so I thought, wow, I really need to leave this job.
Yeah.
So burnout. And so I had the question, what's my next step? It's a great labyrinth question, by the way. What's my next step? And so I worked in 1985 with Jean Houston for a full year. And I thought, I'm going to call Jean and just see if I can drop back into her conference, which is called the Mystery School.
Okay.
And that is when her team taped a large 11 circuit medieval labyrinth on the floor for us to walk as an evening exercise. And that's the first time I connected to the labyrinth. That was a very important sabbatical then, for sure.
Yes, your discovery on the labyrinth idea and concept, I'm very intrigued about. Can you explain to the listeners a little bit of the element about what the labyrinth is and what we can use it for, or what's its purpose and history?
Sure. Well, the labyrinth, and the pattern we're using now at Grace Cathedral, there's two labyrinths, is designed in the floor of Chartres Cathedral in France. And it was put there in 1201. So this is before the Enlightenment. So the labyrinth there is really a template about how to integrate mind, body, and spirit. And just to describe it for our listeners, it's usually a large circle. That one is 40 feet in diameter, and it has one path that leads in a very circuitous way from the outer edge into the center. And then the person walking the labyrinth, then also walks the path back out.
Yes.
And it's circuitous at 28 180-degree turns. And so you're balancing yourself. You're turning left, you're turning right, you're turning left. It's really a whole brain activity.
It is.
You're really balancing yourself. And that's why people come out feeling very peaceful, grounded. And so you can use the labyrinth for many things, and very easy to learn. It's something really easy to do. It's very important to always remind people it's not a maze. It's not
true. It isn't.
It's the opposite of a maze, because a maze is designed to lose your way and make you lose your way, and a labyrinth is designed for you to find your way.
I like that analogy. So it makes a more complex description of why the labyrinth is the way it is, but also the resource of going and walking a labyrinth. What would you input for someone to understand, besides the complexity of its structure, what you kind of have witnessed or coach people on thinking about when they're in the labyrinth?
Sure. Well, we talk about the kind of the structure, and again, people don't have to memorize this. It's just helpful to quiet our thinking mind with a little bit of information, and we call it the 3 R's. So it's releasing, receiving, returning. So when you first go in, very important thing is just find your natural pace, not the pace your mind thinks you should go. There's a difference.
True. I'm fast paced, so I understand. We have to chill out and, take a moment to be there.
That's right. And so you're stepping in, you're releasing, you're letting go, you're emptying, you're shedding all your thoughts. And of course, any method that anyone has learned at any point in their lives about meditation, whether it's a breath practice or whether it's repeating a mantra or a sacred phrase. All of that can apply. So you can bring that into the labyrinth to help you
Absolutely.
quiet your mind. See, and the thing for me, because I've always considered myself a failed meditator.
I understand that practice and the idea.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of us out there actually. And actually, what that is, though, is we're thinking about sitting meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And see, when people's stress levels go up, and including mine during the AIDS crisis at Grace Cathedral, is all my practices went out the window. They weren't available to me. I couldn't do it. They didn't help me. They didn't support me. And so that's how I discovered, okay, walking quiets the mind. And so that's what you're doing as you're going into that first phase, releasing, letting go. When you reach center, that's the second R. You've emptied so you can receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea what people receive. It's unique to each person. And I do remember the woman coming up to me saying, nothing happened for me in the labyrinth, except I felt a deep sense of peace.
That's winning.
Right. Well, don't be fussy, right? Don't be
fussy. She was successful in my mind. She did a really good job.
Yeah, that's not so bad nowadays to find some peace.
Absolutely.
And then the return path, the third R, return path. And that actually, in the early days of introducing it, is an instruction. People in the center, when they're receiving, you can sit, you can stand, stay as long as you want. But on the return path, you're following the same path back out. But also it's kind of return, RE, it's resolve, reclaim. Lots happens, reflection, a lot happens in that return path.
I agree. I had the luxury of going to see you at Cathedral for the Labyrinth purpose, and everyone's mind and state of mind in that journey is very much unique to that person. And that's why it was important for some stillness and movement. I talk a lot about movement meditations rather than sitting into a still point. I'm very much an active person. And for me, sitting still for so long, it was difficult for me to get in the mind state that I could sit down and meditate and not listen to my ego talking all the time and doesn't really still out. And that was why it was important for me, the idea of the labyrinth, and why it was a useful tool or practice, more so because it was very topical right now. Your experience in the 1990s were very relevant to now, the pandemic and people being alone by themselves and dealing with their inner thoughts and their inner demons and who's talking. Like the joke is always like a relatively biblical joke. You have the devil on one side and the angel on the other, like who's leading the narrative here. So after that, I think people have been trying to figure out a working idea about what's going to work for them in their mental structure. And I think the labyrinth is a great tool, especially for San Francisco, who it's been difficult for a lot of people because you're in a little box in a tiny apartment and you need to get out or experience any at all like activity. And so that was a really useful tool at Grace Cathedral, and I thought it was a really useful element that was accessible for people.
Yes, and it is. It's very accessible now. There's about 6,000 labyrinths in the United States. There's a labyrinth locator locating labyrinths around the world, but they're almost everywhere now. And in any city, a lot of people come up and say, "Oh, I'm sure it wouldn't be in my city." And I said, "Well, go on and labyrinth locator and look it up." And lo and behold, they email me back and say, yeah, there is one here. During COVID, it became really important. You're absolutely right. I think that huge pause that we took in our culture, unprecedented in world history, unprecedented, allowed people some time to reflect and go inside. I think a lot of people are making different decisions because of that.
Absolutely.
But when you're talking about people reflecting on their mental structure, the little, devil and angel on each corner, we really need to come to recognize, that we have a lot of voices inside ourselves.
Absolutely.
We have a lot, and you can't kill any of them off. You got to befriend every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And see, the labyrinth, that's a great application for the labyrinth. For instance, most of us always work with critical voices. Some, you have a critical voice in there telling you you're stupid or you shouldn't be trying this idea, or you did that wrong, or oh my gosh, you handled that terribly, and to really, you can be walking in the labyrinth, find your natural place, let yourself drop in and have a conversation with that part of yourself. Do a history on it. Who is it? Whose voice is it? You see, and so that's one application for the labyrinth. There's many of them, but that's one of them for sure.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And the inner narrative can come by, you hear your inner dialogue from your childhood self, which could be your critical ego being shy about and critiquing yourself, parental figures or external figures always teaching you what not to do and how your insignificance could be related to an ego versus your higher self, which is, for me, and what I've learned, is more love orientated, what I love and what I'm passionate about. These are higher energies and conversations that I have, that I get the brilliant light on and moment of creativity. And so that was really useful tool for I guess in my mind, sometimes problem solving, like meditation, walking and movement was really good for solving a problem.
Yes.
Figuring out what to do with the state I'm in, whichever way, personally, career-wise, what my focus are, what my core is, and who I relate to now, and draws my energy in a positive way. Really sustainable tool and practice to keep in the rhythm. And finding the labyrinths, I tried to use the app that you suggested, and I wasn't really successful with it. But what was it again for the Finding Labyrinth Anywhere?
The Labyrinth Locator.
The Labyrinth Locator.
Yeah.
I think there's one in Benicia, and I tried to find that one outside because that was, an outside one. And also I like being around nature sometimes, but it helps that you can find a lot of them in Los Angeles as well. So you can find an outside place, or, even making yourself walk in a circular path around a beach or a hike or somewhere in nature can help with that rhythm and that practice. But you have a really great event coming up on May 6th. Can you explain what the Day of the Labyrinth is about?
Yes, it's World Labyrinth Day, and literally we mean World Labyrinth Day. Labyrinth people in Australia will be joining us, the UK, Hong Kong, Singapore, you name it. And it's always the first Saturday in May. And it's as World Labyrinth Day, the theme usually is around walk as one at 1 p.m.
Okay.
And then it's expanded a bit. So because it was kind of too narrow with so many people coming. So like at Grace Cathedral, we're having people come. Music will start at 12:30 and go to 2:00. And so we're inviting people just to join us. There's a website, worldlabyrinth.org. You can find a place. It really is World Labyrinth Day.
Yeah.
And so it's great. And it's a way of meeting people and creating community. If people don't know what a labyrinth is, there's always a brief overview about how to walk it, which is, of course, as you know, very simple. And just follow the path.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say, but also doing it is an activity that you have to kind of motivate yourself to go and figure out, exactly what it is and what's the value to this. And this is helping you and helping yourself in your mental structure and feeling in a balance, in a viewpoint of movement. And so having that day is really important, and I think a useful tool for people to utilize on that day on May 6th. I will put the links in the bio to what we were discussing today. And also it is an event at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco as well. So that would be a fun activity. Fun in my mind. I think things like this are fun. So
yeah, well, and they are. People meet one another, and it really does build community.
Yeah, and so in that, I wanted to mention that your book, also Walking the Sacred Path, Rediscovering the Labyrinth as a Spiritual Practice, is available on Amazon, and we'll put the link in the bio for everybody, that you don't have to find a labyrinth always, but you can find the idea about the path and the practice itself. So you can use that application of Finding the Labyrinth Anywhere and find a location for one near you if you're not in the California area. So that's an amazing tool. But also you have an event going on in June at Chartres.
Yeah.
And Chartres, France. It sounds amazing because it's in June. So can you tell me about what that is?
Sure. One of the things that labyrinths are associated with is pilgrimage. And Chartres Cathedral in the Middle Ages was a huge pilgrimage cathedral, not necessarily because of the labyrinth, but people are, come there all the time, peasants and pilgrims alike. And so we've been working out of Chartres Cathedral since 1998 with this program. It's called Walking a Sacred Path program. And we have different faculty people come that teach a seminar in the morning, and then we do tours of the cathedral, and we do a special ritual in the crypt of the cathedral. And the highlight of the week is really having a candlelit labyrinth walk with live music in Chartres Cathedral. And it's beautiful. I would just say that. And going to Chartres, this kind of medieval village with a huge cathedral right in the middle of it. You really kind of step back a few centuries for a little while, and it's nourishing to people. And usually people come on pilgrimage with us, with Veriditas, when they're in transition. Someone you might be, you're graduating from, with your master's degree, or you might be somebody retiring, or you might have your first child, or all of that, or a divorce, or a death. And that's the time to step out of your ordinary life into something different. And so we really have people that are interested in, and I would say for us, it's a spiritual but not religious. That term isn't used a lot anymore, but seekers, people looking for answers, people looking for solace, and to step into a new chapter in their life.
Absolutely. I mean, you use a appropriate tool for calling it a pilgrimage. Because a lot of people need to be on a pilgrimage at one point or the other in their life, because we're all particular creatures. We all have a circle that we round through, and sometimes the chapter is finished and another one is starting to open, but you need that in between time to figure out what's coming on the future. And you can get melancholy, depressed, or feel anxiety that you're missing something that you're used to in your life and your awareness. And now this is a good idea of going on a pilgrimage, especially to somewhere like this. And also, can you describe the idea of the history from the labyrinth for Chartres, France, when it was built and the background?
Yes, sure. Chartres Cathedral is a fascinating place, and it's quite a very famous cathedral. The labyrinth was put in 1201. It's one of the few cathedrals built within 25 years. Now, there were 3 or 4 other cathedrals before, all out of wood from the oak grove that was there. And then they found a quarry and made this of stone. And then that's when the labyrinth went in 1201. And then it was probably actively used. History is a little unclear. The reason cathedrals would have labyrinths are to teach people. Cathedrals are teaching tools. So the stained glass windows taught the early Christians about the biblical stories. And probably the labyrinth was a way of helping people, we would now say, find center.
Yeah.
And some people may say find God or your higher power, or the sense of the universe. And it hadn't been used. It was closed after the French Revolution, when all of these great French cathedrals became temples of reason.
Interesting.
So we moved into the Enlightenment, and the thing that we left behind, I think, therefore I am, and that's all there is to it, the intellect. What we left behind was the imagination and intuition. And this is a template that still holds that.
Okay.
So and the structure is very important. It makes a big difference. There are other labyrinths with other structures, but for me, this is my heart song, because it really, you step into it and the boundaries between mind, body, and spirit fall away. So you can have a heart-to-heart talk with your heart, heart-to-heart talk with your mind. You can have a heart-to-heart talk with spirit. And that boundaryless and the liminal realms, being an in-between world, is what nourishes and enriches people's lives.
Absolutely. And I love that you spoke about creativity and imagination. These are tools as an adult we begin to lose, and we step away from being we would say adulting and taking care of the matter of daily objects and things and activities. And we have kids that they take the precedence over us, and we lose that creative ability and that imagination that's part of being an alive soul here. and bringing some creativity, even if we get it from our kids or someone else, or we see it from someone else that works in a creative capacity. But that imagination and creativity is part of the mind state and also what your life is. So
That's
the
right.
more creative you can become is
And
better.
it's also what we need to solve the world issues right now, to use our creativity, use our imagination, use our intuition to solve the problems that seem insurmountable. And in a way they are, until we can change our lives and think differently about our lives, think differently about whom we're sharing the planet with, that it doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be division. All of that fits into that as well.
Yeah, it's very powerful tool and practice, and also the idea of what it could be usable for actually in our reality today. But it goes down to like women have the privilege and a luxury that we have really good gut instinct. And now we have like a gut pandemic where everybody's glucose intolerant, we're allergic to this or that. And it's like, I think the undercurrent is about our health and practice as well, but also we have lost some of that capacity to trust our gut and our intuition, which comes from that as well.
That's been trained out of us. And then now we have a lot of other challenges with, the loss of Roe vs. Wade. Now there's another weight put on our shoulders that takes
Yeah.
away our creativity, takes away our own choices. It's phenomenal. And this is why we need labyrinths, to get people get grounded and know who they are and find out who
Yes.
they are. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's a really good idea for finding your inner power for inside yourself, and not really looking for extremities and other resources to be that power or be that structure. It's like you need to heal self first, and then you can help to heal others. It has to be a balance, reliable source that you can also heal yourself before. It's like the comical thing on a plane. You put your mask on first, and then before you mask everybody else, because you need to have that heal yourself first, because you need to be a fully fledged full glass of water before you try to share it with everyone and you're depleted and have nothing left to give. You're giving with lack of rather than with giveness, because it's overflowing rather than diminishing tap water that has nothing left.
Right.
But
And how do we keep ourselves nourished and refreshed and full up with, caring and love and reaching out to people. And the labyrinth it's a watering hole for the spirit. It's a great place to keep checking in with.
yes, absolutely. And this pilgrimage in France, anytime I've traveled anywhere, I love to take myself out of the context of what I thought I was, in a
Yeah.
way that my own reality, my daily tasks, my career, my work, my focus, my friends, my family, all of that things can be dissolved when you're outside of the context of what you think you are. And going to somewhere like this would be more important for people to extract themselves. Cultural divides, seeing how other people live in different ways, eating activities. It's very different for me. I lived in France, and I would recommend it to most people that experience somewhere outside of your normal. Like, if you think this is normal, you're not really experiencing life in a way that you need to fully be aware of other possibilities and other ideas and other cultures, because difference could be what's beautiful about humanity.
It's exactly a great use of pilgrimage. You step out of who you think you are and find out who you really are.
Yeah, if we can all get there, I'm still I'm figuring out where I am, but every day it's a learning thing. I love evolution and encouraging people that you evolve over time and getting reacquainted with who you are now rather than who I was a couple years ago. I'm evolving with time, and people sometimes stop evolving. They stop pursuing or being creative or imaginative or reading things that inspire them. Most people that graduated with a BA don't touch a book again in their life, but I love reading things that are inspiring. I highly recommend most of the listeners get the Walking the Sacred Path and Rediscovering the Labyrinth as a spiritual practice, because it could help you as a state of mind, listening to someone like yourself, Laura, that could be inspiring to other people to have another practice that they maybe haven't thought of. But the event on the May the 6th, I recommend, if you're in California, in San Francisco area or Northern California, you should go and have the experience of the labyrinth there, and the music. Any church that I love to see churches in the architecture in myself, because also I've been in music so long that I appreciate the acoustics And it's an amazing acoustic. Any church you go to that's built in a structure, that the echoing and the reverb that it creates is a very beautiful harmony that makes you still, to a point that the music gets embedded in you, that you have a rhythm and a flow.
Yes.
And that could help with the labyrinth and the movement. So you are the founder of Veriditas website, and it's a great useful tool. I'm going to put that in the bio for the podcast, so you can see some of the events that are taking place that you can participate on, and also the books for Dr. Lauren Artress. And so you can get her books as well. But it's an amazing resource if you want something, I would say, especially in the last 2 years, a lot of people that I know and myself as well have done and dealt with grieving. And you mentioned that in the pilgrimage, sometimes you need a stillness or a moment to pay homage to someone else besides yourself, and their energies are still with us, but it could be hard to let go of something that is a very much a core point in your life.
Very
And
much so, yes. And the Labyrinth is a wonderful bereavement tool. And a lot of people do come on pilgrimage for that reason, for loss.
yeah, we have lost a lot of people in the last couple of years. Everyone that I know has been hit one way or the other by a loss, either from COVID itself or also the passing of someone that's important to them. And I think this is a very useful practice and a rhythm and pilgrimage as well. So even if it's just a local one and you're not going far, but if you're going all the way in June the 6th, I think it is, for
Get on the web of Veriditas website. There's May 6th for the World Labyrinth Day, but the pilgrimage in June begins early June, and it's a week-long kind of thing where people stay in one stabilized place, a retreat center, about 60 seconds literally from the cathedral. And so it's a week, and we're offering several weeks throughout the year. We're there 4 weeks.
So just to explain on that pilgrimage, you're allowing people to have some amenities in a place of residence as part of that. And also, can you explain a little bit about the package for that pilgrimage and what people would expect if they want to participate?
Sure. So we meet people in Chartres and we give directions how to get there. So we're not paying people's airfare, but tuition for the program and for the week includes a couple dinners. It includes all the instruction, includes the use of the cathedral and the labyrinth walk as well, and the tours of the cathedral. So we want to educate people about the setting. And we're open. People from all faiths and journeys and walks of life come, not only because it's a UNESCO heritage site, but also we want to live a symbolic life, packed full of symbols. So then we're on site because there is a retreat center right there. So you really stay in one place. You're not traveling from place to place every night. You just located there. You're grounded there. It really is. It's a journey of the soul. That's what a pilgrimage is, a journey of the soul. So.
And I agree with that. And also you're finding a community that's there with you, that you have some stability, and you said a home, like a touch point that you can go back to, because some people I know have never gone abroad or have never traveled abroad. So I understand that too. And also explaining what a UNESCO site is can be difficult for some. It's very much a historic place that now, I think it's mostly in Europe, has labeled a very historic point. I guess relative to here, it would be a national park. We're not going to get rid of it. We're not going to remove it. It's going to be there. It's a historical point of interest.
Yeah.
And so it's worth the trip alone, just the experience in being in a context of history. I love to relate to a lot of architecture in a historical concept. It's been here, and how many people have walked the path before me, and how many people have touched these stones and been enlightened or whispered to or talked to themselves. And then what flows out of that, you can have. I think when I met you, I had a moment of interest in the middle of the night. I get these moment of inspiration. I wrote like a short story about it. And it was a helpful tool. Journaling is also helpful when you're on a pilgrimage like this, and a practice that you can have self-dialogue and talk to yourself about things. This would be a very important touchstone for a lot of people that are still trying to deal with their inner construct, because now like the social and connection of humanity has now gotten to singularity.
Yeah.
So we're a single entity and we don't think about community. I try to remind myself consistently about the tribal Native American concept that it takes a tribe to take care of one, but also you need a tribe to build and take care of yourself and in your entity. This could be a tribe that you found because you made the gesture or the spur of the moment practice of going to something like in France.
That's right. Because it does take something inside each of us to say, okay, I'm going to do this. This is what I need. I'm going to do this. And I teach 1 week with Judith Tripp, the first week on holding space for the sacred in our lives. And then we have Phil Cousineau, and he's celebrating the art of pilgrimage, and that's his book. And it's a wonderful book on pilgrimage. So I would recommend that anybody who's kind of thinking about it as well, because pilgrimage is a really sacred act, and it's an important act for some time in your lifetime to embark on.
Absolutely. I agree. Sometimes it calls you, sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, you have to pay attention to that because it's important for you to experience it. Again, so excited about your events. Remember that May the 6th is the World Labyrinth Day and open in San Francisco at Grace Cathedral. So you can join for the music and the practice of the labyrinth itself. I think, when was the labyrinth actually built, Grace Cathedral?
Actually, we were in 3 stages. We started in canvas, painted on a canvas, 36-foot canvas that we used for years. Then we moved to what's called the Labyrinth Tapestry. That was 1994 to 2007. And now we have a beautiful limestone marble labyrinth indoors and a granite labyrinth outdoors. So there's one indoors and outdoors.
So you get both concepts in a church and then also outside in nature, which could be different practices. Mostly Buddhists and Taoists are nature people that love to be around nature for their moments of peace. So you have both constructs accessible for all types and people and religious practices as well. In that, I want to sign myself up to the pilgrimage, but I recommend for most people, all these links will be in the bio and also for Veriditas. And so thank you very much, Dr. Lauren Artress, that has been our guest today, a reverend at the location of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, and her books on the Walking the Sacred Path, Rediscovering the Labyrinth, and the Spiritual Practice.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for Kevin Lincoln for doing our introduction, as well as Magda Murphy for keeping our socials active. And I leave you with this quote today. You are braver than you believe, and stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. A.A. Mean. Thank you very much. My name is Jasmine Maya Royce. In touch at our website at www.tranquilitymagazine.com with our works on print and audio, as well as video coming soon.